Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. This is Todd with Industrial Comfort. Now a small shop like mine and a big tool like this generally don't work well together, which is why it's so critical that you have mobile bases for your tools. And today I'm going to show you how to build one. Now, if you fall into my camp as a woodworker, I'll generally spend 3 to 4 times what it would cost me just to buy what I'm looking to build. But in this case, I'm going to show you how to do this from nothing more than scrap wood that you already probably have in your shop and $25 retractable casters. Let me show you how I did it. Now the first step in creating a mobile base for this beast is measuring the footprint. So what I found really interesting is that most of these tools, irrespective of whether we're talking about a table saw or a bandsaw like this, sit on a hollow box. So as you can see here, and put my finger up here, I was kind of expecting something that was going to be a little bit more solid, which is why it's important that we need a solid piece of plywood on the bottom to support the entire perimeter of this box. So what you need to do, and again the process is the same regardless of the size of the base of the tool that you're working with, is measure out the footprint. So I've got 17 3/4 wide by 29.5 inches long. I'm going to take these measurements over to the workbench, and what we're going to do is cut out the piece of plywood. You want to use the thickest stock possible, so that's going to be roughly 3/4 of an inch. Then what we're going to do is cut it out, ensuring that we have the appropriate width for a 2x6, which is going to serve as the perimeter, so we'd be looking at an extra 3 inches of length and 3 inches of width. Then I'm going to add an extra 1/4 inch of space to accommodate any fluctuations in the wood that may be the result of warping, cupping, etc. We want to make sure we have enough to play with. So again, 17 3/4, 29.5 inches for this, and we'll get cutting. Now unfortunately I didn't have any 2x6s in the shop, but I do have these 2x12s. Well, guess what? If I rip them in half, I've got 2x6s. So I'm going to cut these down to size and then we'll mount them to the plywood. With these 2x6s now ripped and the plywood base cut to size, I'm just going to trim these to match the size of the plywood base at width and length. Don't forget that for your side pieces, you're going to want to measure 3 inches shorter to accommodate the 2x6s on either end, which each measure 1.5 inches thick. Before I glue and screw in these boards, you'll notice that I've drawn a perimeter at 3/4 of an inch in all around the bottom of this base. What I'm now going to do is mark out at every 1.5 inches so that I have a number of intervals around the perimeter in which I'm going to pre-drill for the screws. So these boards are 1.5 inches. I'm just going to use them to mark out the location where I'm going to make my holes. And I'm going to load this thing up with screws. I've marked out the location for where I'm going to pre-drill the holes for this mobility base. Now I'm of the belief that if I load this up with screws, and I'm going to be using some number 10 decking screws at 3 inches long, That should suffice. I'm not of the belief that I need these sophisticated steel brackets to make this work. With enough screws, I won't have any issues holding everything together, even with a saw that weighs in at close to 400 pounds. So I'm going to drill these out, and then we'll glue up the boards, stick them to the bottom, and insert the screws. And then we'll go on and work on the casters. Probably a bit overkill, but I'm going to glue these up before I put the screws in place. Now the final step in the process is attaching the retractable casters. Now I'm deciding to use this model as I've used them for other mobile bases that I've created in the past. And the way they work is you affix them to the base or your workpiece, and when you raise the pedal here, it allows the wheel to retract, and then your workpiece settles down to the ground. Now these things are heavy duty. They're rated for about 700 pounds, which is almost double the weight of the saw that we're going to be putting in this base. Now the cool thing is they all come with these templates. So all you need to do is put the template up against your workpiece, mark the location where you're going to drill your holes, and assemble everything. Now I'm using the widest point of this base. Now I have a very tall saw, so I want the most amount of stability. If I were to put the casters on the ends here, it would not create the stability that I'm looking for. So I'm going to mount them to the long ends here. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is mount them such that I have at least 2 3-inch screws that go through into the cross member, and then I'll use 1.5-inch screws for the remainder of the 4 holes. There are 6 in total. So I'll mark these up and get them in place. Okay, next step is to put the wheels in place. So all you need to do is put the lock nut on, or the lock washer, and the nut. And these kits actually come with these little wrenches. I'll show you in a sec. Now they're sort of junky and they bend pretty easily, but they serve the purpose. Okay, the base is now complete. I just need a little neighborhood help to get this monster into this thing so I can show you how it works. So when I get some help, I'll be back and we'll wrap this up. If you're observant, you'll notice that I cut a channel out of the bottom here. Now once we got the saw in place, I realized I couldn't open the door on this thing, which is why it's missing part of the front panel. So let's give this thing a test and see how well it works. As I mentioned before, in order to activate these wheels, you're going to push down on the pedal with your feet. That'll lift the base up and we'll be able to move it. And it works. I'm super impressed with how this mobile stand came out. It's super strong, it's cheap, and it's really easy to make. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching.